Okay, welcome back everyone. Today we're covering Chapter 5, which is over service readiness. So the first thing we're going to talk about are dining room work areas, most commonly known as stations or sections. We lightly touched on this in an earlier lecture. I have once again included a section map of the Class Act restaurant. I believe in the previous lecture I had it as a 4-person section. This is an example of what a 3-person section would look like. Again, each color representing one server's area. So there we have someone covering the orange tables, the yellow tables, and the green tables. So these sections are going to be assigned by the host, maitre d', or floor manager at the beginning of the shift. Some factors that go into dividing this, again, are the forecasted business for the day, and we actually, most restaurants should or do staff off of forecasted business. So we put out like a 15-day forecast that covers 2 weeks plus the day that you're in, forecasting what you think is going to be coming into the restaurant, and then you staff accordingly. So, I mean, you would know at the beginning of the shift how many servers you have to start, so you should know how many sections you're going to be running. Also looking at how many booked reservations we have, including large parties and where those are going to be placed. Server experience, who do we have working today? Is it an experienced team with all, star players, or do we have some newer people there that are going to need help and a little bit of support from management throughout the day? And then section popularity, which is a big one. So once again, if we look over here on the map, we have these booths and these booths. These are very popular in the restaurant. These tables here are window seat tables. These are very popular. So in our restaurant, it would be important if we ran this 3-server section back to back, day over day, that we would be giving these highly desirable areas to different people each day to make sure that it's fair. Again, assuming that everyone's on the same experience level and everyone deserves these areas, we would say, okay, day 1, Billy, you get the booths. Day 2, Sally gets the booths. Day 3, Timmy gets the booths, so on, because those are your most valuable real estate, but you also want to make sure that each server has an opportunity to serve that area. So that kind of what I just explained is basically section rotation. So we talked about section popularity, which ties into section rotation on a daily basis. So we just want to make sure we're keeping it fresh and make sure that one person isn't always serving the worst or slowest section in the restaurant. Phasing or cutting the floor. This refers to when a server is done taking guests, not necessarily done for the day. Very important distinction there. So you may have heard before, if you've worked in a front of house environment, or when you come in and work in the restaurant, a server may ask myself or another manager, am I cut? Those magic words, 3 words, am I cut? Meaning, am I done taking guests? And if the answer is yes, that means that they will finish out the guests they have on the floor. So they're going to finish serving those guests. They're going to start working on their personal closing side work, and then they can leave. If we say to a server, you're cut, or they ask if they're cut, and we say yes, that does not mean that they can just pack up and go home. It just means that they are done taking new guests. So this happens multiple times throughout the day. Breakfast server comes in. If we don't need them for lunch, we'll say, okay, you're done, you're cut, you can go home. So they work on their stuff and then they leave. The lunch server, if we don't need them for dinner, they'll be cut probably around 4 p.m. And then usually you have multiple dinner servers on, so if you have 2 or 3, there's usually a first out, second out, and then a closer. So those first and second out people would be cut at some point throughout the night when the manager determines that there's probably not a whole lot more business coming in and we don't need that many people on the floor. Side work may be assigned on based on section or station. In the Class Act, it's a little bit different. It's a very small restaurant. But what you'll find in larger establishments is the sections might have their own little like POS station cabinet things out in the middle of the floor that, let's say this one was tied to the green section and you were responsible for the green section, you'd be responsible for stocking that and making sure that everything on these tables in your section area would be stocked and ready for service. That's kind of what we're talking about. Again, the Class Act, very small restaurant, so we all just kind of look over the floor together as a team. But larger places, this is very common where you have your area, you have your workstation, and you're responsible for keeping that clean and organized. New servers will be assigned a smaller section. That's kind of just a duh thing, of course. We don't want them to be overwhelmed, and if they're overwhelmed, they might be giving poor service to the guests. So not a good situation. We want them to, get their feet wet, feel a little uncomfortable, but not to the point where it's bad for both the team and the guests. So they're going to get something smaller, maybe just 2 to 3 tables. Maybe we would start them off something like this. These 4, not necessarily highly trafficked, but 2 4-tops, 2 2-tops, that'd be good for a new person to start. New. Having fun with this pen today, if you can't tell. Alrighty, mise en place, important French word here, or phrase, means to put into place. Very commonly used in the back-of-house environment when talking about like all the little hotel pans with all the food that they prep up before service, and then those are on the line, and then they take from those to actually cook the meals. Same thing in front of house, okay? Mise en place means a lot of things. It means having silverware polished, glassware polished, having lemons cut for, the iced tea, coffee brewed, anything that you can do both before and during the shift to prepare, to serve guests, that is mise en place. And the more you are prepared and the more you have things ready and in place for service, the less behind you're going to be, and you're not going to have this sense of being scrambled or overwhelmed when things get busy. So that's the point. Okay, so side work. It's a way of life, of course. Corresponds to stations or tables you serve during the shift. Yes, absolutely. Opening side work helps prepare you for the shift. Closing side work prepares for the next shift. I mean, in general, these are generalities here. Okay, and then so we have this up here, corresponds to stations or tables you serve during the shift. Yes, so you're responsible for that, such as the glassware and silverware that went through dish that could have corresponded to your section. You want to make sure that it's fair, and like you're at the end of the shift, you're polishing an appropriate amount for the volume of business that you served. But then down here, ongoing duties such as organizing and cleaning. These are things that maybe are done on a daily or weekly basis, or maybe a monthly basis, that aren't like polishing and cutting lemons and stuff like that. This would be, like dusting light fixtures, or sanitizing the menu boards, or wiping down the greeter stand. Just tasks that don't need to be done maybe, every shift, or maybe not every week even, but usually weekly, monthly, bi-weekly. Just basically cleaning projects for the restaurant is what we're talking about, okay? So don't just think that you can get in and out every day with your shifts just doing side work assigned to your section, because there are always more things to do around the restaurant to keep it clean and orderly. Again, I think I've said it before, and very common phrase, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. Both a front and back of house expression there. So some examples of opening side work here. Well, first, okay, most important side work for guest experience, especially during rush periods, right? Because we're setting things up for the day, making sure everything's stocked and ready to go. So brewing the coffee and tea, of course, refilling ice. They should also refill ice at night, so this can also be a PM thing. But if you don't know already, ice melts, so sometimes that'll settle overnight, so you need to refill it. It could also be like refilling ice in the bar, the sinks. Filling water pitchers, turning on the toaster, cutting lemons, right, getting your garnishes. This could also be / garnishes. I'm not going to write out garnishes, but garnishes. Stocking smallwares like trays and saucers. Okay, we have a situation where the PM people will put stuff in dish for it to be cleaned, and then the dish people clean it and then let it dry, such as like our coffee thermals and stuff like that. So we'll go in the morning and we'll collect those items that we need for service, and then bring them up to the line. Making sure your condiments are stocked. Okay, we have individual single-use condiments for the most part, little ketchups and mustards and Tabascos and stuff, which is nice. But a lot of other restaurants don't do that, and they buy those condiments in bulk, and then they're on the tables. Like, think about a barbecue joint or some kind of diner where like the ketchup and mustard and hot sauce may be in their own bottles, or maybe you're working at a place that makes their own ketchups or hot sauces or barbecues or whatnot, and they're in little glass containers or plastic containers on the table. You would be required to go around and make sure that those levels are full, right? Closing side work. Of course, we're going to finish polishing the flatware and glassware for the restaurant, make sure everything's run through dish, clean the coffee and tea machines, empty those out, sweep and mop. This should also be done throughout the day. This is kind of like an as needed. Oh, I can't believe I'm writing this out. As needed. I think you get the point. Because really, certain guests are just messier than others, and that is a reality of the restaurant business. Especially think about winter when you have people tracking in salt and mud and grime from the road. The sweeping and mopping thing is not a once-a-day thing like it is maybe in the summer. It is after every service, so you're doing it 3 times a day. Wiping chairs, this is a big one. It should be done every time after a guest leaves, and then you don't have to worry about doing the entire floor at once at the end of the night, right? So if everyone's keeping up on their side work throughout their shift, table leaves, you wipe the chair, you wipe the table, you reset it. Should be good to go. Make sure when you're wiping chairs you're using a different rag than the ones you're using for the tabletop. Okay, you do not want to be wiping the tabletop or the placemats off with the same towel that you are also wiping people's, the seats where people's butts have been. That's not sanitary, and guests will watch you and they will see if you're doing that or not, and it's just gross. So just carry 2 towels, one for the tabletops, one for the seats. Vacuuming carpeted areas, again, as needed, kind of ties in with this one. If you have a really messy lunch group, you're going to want to vacuum that after lunch before dinner, not just wait until the end of the day. Turning off appropriate equipment, such as the coffee machine, iced tea brewers, stuff like that. Could also mean the back house equipment. Here at the Class Act, our front of house managers are responsible for making one last sweep through the kitchen to make sure that things like the broiler and the fryers are turned off at the end of the day. Not only to save energy, but it's just a safety thing. We don't want something to spark up in the middle of the night. Log any issues throughout the day for the next shift, such as stock items or things they should be aware that you're out of, or maybe last minute changes to reservations that are right away in the morning. Just make a little note, make sure that they know about that. This is more of a manager item than anything, but if something was brought to your attention as a server, you'd want to make sure to run that up the chain. Just remember here, the goal of an effective closing procedure is to stock and clean the restaurant. Stock and clean the restaurant. Okay, so what can happen when side work is not completed? Beverages, these are just examples. I mean, so many things can happen. Beverages run out. Condiments aren't stocked. Tables can't be reset. It's bad. Overall, it affects the guest experience and sets service staff behind, right? So that's one aspect, okay? Yes, it affects the guest experience. So here's a picture of a very busy kitchen. They look confused, right? That's not good. That's not what we want. It's messy. Look at that mess. The other aspect of this is if one service period team is not doing their side work, someone has to pick up the slack. So AM doesn't do something. They don't sweep the floor, okay, let's say. Okay, well, then PM comes in and they have to do all their stuff to get ready for dinner service and sweep the floor. So then they say, well, hey, we swept the floor. We're going to leave this glass or this rack of polishing for you to do, glass or silver, for the morning. And then the morning people come in and they're like, I can't believe these PM people didn't do all their polishing. And here we have the snowballing effect of resentment amongst employees. So yes, it affects the guest experience. Absolutely. It's bad in the moment, but what can be worse is having your team not work cohesively. So which is why it's so important that everyone's holding each other accountable for the side work shift to shift, making sure it's getting done. And yeah, sometimes you're going to be really busy and one shift is going to get absolutely run over and another shift's going to have to pick up the slack. And that's fine. And if you're working in a good team environment, everyone should work together to knock that out. But what you don't want to do is get into this rut of pettiness, of starting to leave little tasks knowingly for the next shift because you think that they're to blame for something else. That never works out. You're not going to have a good team. It's not operating at peak efficiency. It needs to be addressed, and that's something that the manager needs to do. Product knowledge. Alrighty, if you cannot adequately answer a guest's questions about the menu, it weakens the guest's confidence in you and reduces your opportunities to suggestively sell. Right? This affects your personal sales, and of course the gratuity is tied to that as well. Guests assume you know everything about the menu, so you need to take initiative to learn as much as you can. If you don't know, I don't know if you guys can hear my cat's meowing in the background, I'm sorry. If you don't know how to answer a guest question, what should you do? Well, we need to find the answer. Okay, we need to let the guests know you're going to find the answer for them, and then talk to the appropriate party, whoever that may be. So if it's a food question, probably the chef, maybe your manager. It could be a coworker, right? Like maybe you're just new at a place, and that seems like a basic question, so a fellow server or server assistant could help you out. Bartender, sommelier. Most important thing here is that you are letting the guests know. Okay, don't just say, oh yeah, it's a good question, I'm not sure, and then walk off. That is wrong. Okay, that's a great question. I'm sorry, I don't know that, but we're going to learn together. Let me go talk to the chef, the manager, whoever it is. I'm going to get that answer for you right away. And then the important part here, just like service recovery, is to do it. Okay, don't get distracted by something else. If you say you're going to go find an answer, go do that thing right away. Get the answer and then come back, because if you are distracted and you go check on another table on your way, you're going to forget, and then those guests that are waiting for that answer see that you're doing other things. So just go figure it out as quickly as possible. Okay, but this is actually very important, right? And think about when you go out to eat, okay, especially somewhere nice where you're planning on spending a lot of money, you do assume that the server, because they should be trained, right, that they know everything about the menu, all the cooking methods, what all ingredients are, stuff like that. And you can be disappointed if they don't know, right? But if they figure out the answer for you, that's a lot better, and you can tell that they're invested in your experience. Whereas if they just say they don't know and they walk off, yeah, I'm definitely in this boat. My confidence is shaken. I don't really know what's good on the menu or if they care at all. So just make sure that you are getting those answers to people when they have them. Okay, well this showed up weird. Geez, sorry. Okay, topics to learn about the menu. I'll have to go back and fix that animation. All right, we're going to learn the menu by categories. So apps, salads, and entrees. Right, because sometimes people come in and they're not looking for something big to eat, or maybe they are, they're coming in ahead of time for a larger group and they want to get some apps going. So you need to be able to help the guests navigate the menu and point out those categories, because menus can be confusing sometimes, especially these days with all like the modern fonts and whatnot. So you just want to make sure that they can find what they're looking for. You need to know what items include soup, salad, or sides, right? And then if there's a cost of additional add-on items. Figuring out what beverages are free refill versus charged. So in general, free refill, of course, are going to be water, I would hope. Coke products, usually iced tea, coffee, once those are purchased, those are usually free refill. Sometimes milk and juice is, but in the Class Act it's not. So milk, juice, espresso products for us, and of course alcohol, pretty much everywhere, is not going to be free refill unless it's like a bottomless mimosa brunch or something. But in general, juice, milk products, and alcohol, and high-end coffee products, those are generally never free refills. So you would want to make sure to double check with the guest if that beverage is low before you put another one in, because they're going to be charged for it, right? Okay, so here we go. Beverage menu knowledge. Yay, that's what these are. Non-alcoholic, beer, wine, cocktails, knowing what the different options are. Okay, even if you're a lunch server, it's good to know these three down here, the alcoholic ones, because eventually someone's going to come in and they're going to want something to drink, and it's better if you at least have some semblance of an idea of what's on that menu, but at dinner, absolutely, you need to know everything here. Cooking and prep times. Okay, you need to know how things are prepared, but again, how long things take. Let's say you're dealing with that you're serving that person that is in a rush, or they have a limited window that they can dine with you, or they're the pre-theater group for dinner or whatever it is, and they have an hour to get out and they want to do 3 courses, and they want to order this big chicken breast that's roasted to order. Probably not the best idea. Same with like a medium well, the well done steak. Probably not the best idea. So just knowing how long things take in general is going to really benefit you in serving those types of guests. Making sure you know the various toppings on the sandwiches on the menu and what those are. It kind of ties into this one, knowing sauces and aioli varieties. Again, you'd be surprised with how many people do not know what an aioli is. It's your job to break these sauces and aiolis kind of down. Same with the toppings on the restaurant. It's like, what is a pickled onion? How is it different than a regular onion? Well, let me tell you. Restaurant standard for various degrees of doneness and colors. In theory, this should be the same in every restaurant across the United States. Or not the United States, geez, the world, right? So talking about rare to, well done, or even black and blue, that's kind of what we're talking about. But every place has their own little flair, and sometimes, your kitchen, they either overcook things or maybe they undercook things a little bit. So you need to be able to explain that to the guest. You also need to understand what guests are trying to tell you when they're explaining how they want their protein cooked, because you are going to get those people that say, I want a well done steak with pink in the middle. And you're like, well, that doesn't really exist. Of course, you're not saying that to the guest, that's in your head. So what they probably want is like a medium well. Or they said they want it cooked all the way done, but no blood, or just whatever it is. Things that just simply don't exist. You need to be able to understand what they're saying, and understand they either want it medium or medium well. I want it well done but not charred. Okay, so they just don't sear it hard. Those types of things, and that needs to be communicated to the kitchen. That's the point on this line. Is that's a horrible star. Communicating what the guest wants to the kitchen, knowing how your kitchen prepares those things. Portion sizes, right? That was pretty self-explanatory. Splitting fees, extra portion fees. Sometimes a restaurant will charge a fee for splitting a plate because if you split a plate, right, if 2 people are dining, you're counting on something called average check as a business. And so you're counting on each person getting an entree. But if 2 people come in and they only order 1 entree, now your average check is cut in half as an establishment. So sometimes people meaning the business, will charge a split plate fee to try to recoup some of that loss from the second person not getting an entree. But sometimes it's also because what they'll do is they will cut the protein or the main element of that entree directly in half when split, but they will supplement with full portions of the side components on that entree, and so the charge is to cover those costs. So you kind of need to understand why your restaurant has that policy and help explain that to the guest if they ask. Okay, where to access recipe information and cooking methods, another good one. This just really has to do with allergies, right? If someone has an allergy and you need to know if there's an ingredient in that dish, we can go and find that in the binder in the back, or on Chef Tech or whatever program your kitchen is using. How to treat children. This one, we kind of already talked about wrangling children, so this is just in general how to treat them. We're going to treat them like adults, and we're going to talk to them like adults unless it's very obvious that the parents are trying to order for them and they don't want the child to be part of the ordering process. But 9 times out of 10, we will take the order from the child and deliver food directly to them, stuff like that. And then the question here is, what if they order something expensive? So you're going around the table, and what's common, especially with larger parties, is that the kids kind of congregate to one end and the parents are at the other end. And little Timmy orders the $42, 20-ounce tomahawk steak. everyone else at the kids' table is getting like grilled cheese and soup, that might be an appropriate time to kind of give a glance to the parent or guardian responsible for that child and just confirm that that's okay. Once again, we want to take them seriously because they're guests, and it's a fun thing, and they kids feel important when they get an order, so we want to encourage that. But if you think it's something a little out of whack or a little expensive, it's okay to double check with the parent or guardian. If they give the green light, then great. But they also might pivot and say like, how about the chicken fingers instead? So what you don't want to do is you don't want to assume that that's okay and then present the check, or when the entree comes out and the parents see it, and they're like, "What on earth did you order?" And then they blame you. It's not a good situation. So just kind of read that situation out. Oop. Okay, I guess that's it. All right, last thing here, a la carte versus prefix menus, the two main types of menus that you're going to see out in the restaurant environment. So a la carte means all items are ordered separately. It allows guests to build a custom meal. It allows you, the server, the greatest opportunity to suggestively sell. So this does include composed dish menus such as the Class Act, which is most restaurants these days, meaning that there's an entree with sides on the plate, but in general the menu is built in a fashion that you have like starters or appetizers, and then a soup, salad, sandwich section, and then an entree section. We will still consider that a la carte for this example, but the truest example of a la carte would be at like a very kind of old school steakhouse where every single item on the menu is separate. Like the proteins are all separate, and then if you just order the steak, that's literally all they're going to bring out to you, unless you have also ordered your side, which may be like potato, corn, green beans, a side of bread, whatever it is, and every little thing is separate. Okay, that is the best example of an a la carte menu, and it's the best. It gives you the best opportunity because there's so many different things that you can pair that you kind of get to bounce around the menu and have a conversation with the guest about what they're really in the mood for. The opposite of this is the prefix. Okay, I'll say that again. Prefix, fixed price. That's what this means. Predetermined menu. Generally a multi-course menu. Very few, if any, substitutions can be made on this. The menu may or may not include beverage pairings on it. Okay, these are most commonly found around holiday times. So if you're an a la carte menu restaurant like we are, and most restaurants are, we will in general offer a prefix menu like around Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, sometimes Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Mother's Day. Sometimes we'll do those, but New Year's Eve, Valentine's Day, those are kind of the two heavy hitters in our industry for restaurants switching away from a la carte and running a prefix menu that night. Okay, and usually it's priced at like a per couple price line, so it's like $90, but that's 2 people for 4 courses or whatever it is. Okay, and these menus. The question here is, how do prefix menus work in the restaurant's favor? Here's the thing about this. Okay, you have 100 people on the books for an a la carte menu. You don't know what they're going to order, so you have to have everything prepped, right? Because you just don't know. You don't know what they're going to order. They could order an equal mix of everything, or everyone could order the same 2 to 3 items off the menu. So you have to have everything there. That's a lot of food, potential food waste. Prefix menu, how many people are on the books. You have 100 people on the books. They're all getting this menu, so you can calculate within a very small margin of error how much food you need to order, how much you need to prep. Okay, and then there should be very little waste at the end of the day. So it is really awesome for food cost for the restaurant. It's very cost effective. Okay, you should have a low cost of goods sold on that. For the service staff, they don't need to know as much, right? They know the menu. The chef goes over the prefix menu. Here are the courses, no substitutions. The bartender, beverage manager, sommelier, whoever is in charge of the beverage pairing will go over that, and then you're just saying the same thing to every table, right? Not like a robot, but you just go to the table, welcome, here's our prefix menu tonight, I'll explain the courses as they come out, here's your beverage pairing, it pairs well because of, this or that, enjoy, and then you leave, and then you go run the same course to the next table, and to the next table, and then you start clearing, and then you're running the next courses, and it's just very smooth and efficient for both the front and back of house. So large benefit to running prefix menus. There are restaurants out there that survive by only offering prefix menus. They're typically much higher end and the menus cost a lot of money because people want to go out and they want choices, which is why a la carte in general is the most popular format. Okay, I believe that is it for Chapter 5, Service Readiness. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next week.